Welcome to episode 2 of the Leadership Lab by Dr. VK. In the last episode, we talked much about the leadership deficit that is there in Africa among our leaders, especially the young people. And in this episode, we are going to be discussing how people stumble into leadership, because that's what also I think affects the preparation challenges that we have in leadership. When I got out of college, I was staying with my sister. And I would write letters, a lot of letters every single day. And I would dress up, go and walk around the city of Blantyre. I was prepared to work. So I was not just going to leave it to chance to say a job is going to find me. I wanted to go out there and look for it, which is not so many young people are doing that at the moment. They'll just say, jobs are not there. But at that time, you had to do that. Until one day I received a phone call from the University of Malawi, my college, Chancellor College. They wanted someone with my background, and my lecturers had recommended me. So they asked me if I was ready to go for interviews in this organization in Lilongwe, and I was in Blantyre at the time. And so I went. So you can imagine, I had absolutely no idea of what I was up against. I was just armed with a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology and English. I thought I was ready for the world. But was I really? I wasn't. I was an accidental employee, And so I went there. I sat in an interview. They asked me if I could do the job. And obviously I said yes. I had been looking for a job for the past 6 months. I said, of course I can do it. It was very funny when they asked me what kind of money I was looking for, the kind of salary I was looking for. And at the time I said, I'll not accept anything less than 25,000. It was very funny because now when I look back, I was like, oh my God, 25,000 was very, very small money. But my boss then looked at me and said, are you really from Chancellor College? I said, oh yeah. He says, then what? Why are you so cheap? I said, no, I don't know. That's the money I'm looking for. And she offered me 3 times that money. Can you imagine? My head was spinning at that moment. So I was supposed to be working with young people. So I've always been interested in young people. I was supposed to be working with young people in informal settlements across Lilongwe on issues to do with psychological issues and all that. So I had a chance now to even apply what I had learned in college. It was a UNICEF-funded project. And so when I started the work, I had charisma. I'm coming from college that God loves the most, but I didn't know what to expect. The first week was the most challenging. At that time, charisma was very much up against competence. It was going to be very challenging, and I knew it was going to be challenging, but there's one thing, the tenacity to do it and to say, come what may, I'm still going to do this job. And then another challenge came. One of the challenges was that my boss liked me. 2 weeks into time, and she decided that I was not just going to be a person for the project, because that was a 3-month project. I was going to be a project officer looking at other issues in the programs. But then they struggled to find a title for me. For the next 6 months, my title changed maybe 3 or 4 times. She would go to a meeting and then come back and say, oh no, now I know what we're going to be calling you. That was a huge challenge, because it was very difficult for me to find my feet within that institution, to find my grounding within that institution. I was an accidental leader. And so within a year, I was promoted from project officer to a program manager. I went into management without preparation. That is why I want other people to learn from me, learn from my mistakes, and prepare themselves before the title comes, before that office comes, before that leadership position comes. So now there's a danger to titles, because remember in the last episode, we were talking about entitlement, stewardship, accountability, and all that. Now titles, they replace purpose. You are replacing your purpose for doing or being where you are with your title. You become entitled. I'm a program manager. I'm a manager here. I'm a director here. So anything else does not matter. It becomes extremely dangerous. And then there are issues of emotional leadership. I was not emotionally mature. And so anything that I would face in the communities or wherever I went, and I was disadvantaged in that I was extremely young. I must have been 22 years old. And I have to deal with women older than my mother, some of them. It was extremely hard. And I took everything personally. I would go home very frustrated from every day. And I was reacting to everything. I learned in a very, very hard way that you just don't react to anything. And so when I was in the office, it was different. And I was also facing different challenges there. For example, I am extremely good at writing reports, and I trained this when I was working as an intern before I finished school, which is another thing there that you can learn from, where you can volunteer your services even without money. A lot of young people find it very difficult to volunteer their services and skills. And so I worked for an institution, and I worked with this amazing lady. She was a magistrate at the time, who taught me how to write a report. So in this new institution, now I've come out of college, I'm a graduate. I knew how to write reports. As a matter of fact, I was writing reports for projects that I didn't even implement. And therefore, for me to do that, I required the input of other people. Other people had to give me information, and I would become impatient, especially when I look at the quality of their work. And so, if you are a leader, you need to give other people grace, especially if they are not gifted as you, because you must also realize that you are also not gifted in other elements as well. For example, I am not an accountant. As a matter of fact, I'm not very good at math. So, but an accountant or an investment banker or somebody that is very good at finance shouldn't look at me because I'm a humanities person. They shouldn't look down on me, because when them and I work together, we will produce something much, much greater than if we were working alone. And so there are also issues of insecurities, and I faced a lot of this as well, because I'm a fresh graduate. I'm coming there, I have fresh ideas, I have charisma and all of that. And I've met people that have been in the industry for longer than me, than myself, and they're looking at me and they're like, okay, what is this person trying to do? Who does she think she is, as young as she is? And so how do you navigate around those kind of things? Because sometimes, where do you draw the line between being assertive and being aggressive? Because a lot of people thought that I was aggressive. As a matter of fact, even when I grew up as a leader, even as a minister, a lot of people thought I was aggressive. When you're really trying to be assertive, or maybe trying to implement something new, trying to do something better, people look at you as if you're being aggressive. And a lot of people have told me, "Oh, you don't behave like a Malawian." It really makes me uncomfortable when people think that Malawians need to be, not aggressive, very, polite and whatever. But when you look at our counterparts from West Africa, for example, they are very aggressive on anything that they're doing. If they're selling you something, they will make you believe that this thing is something that you need to have. They will sell you something and tell you that this sand, my dear, is from Turkey, and it doesn't require you to use cement, and you will believe them because of the aggressive nature that they have. And it's not always negative, it is actually positive. We can do well as Africa learning from those kind of things, where we are not just passive and just waiting for things to happen, but we are going out there to make things happen for ourselves. So there's insecurity in leadership, which sometimes usually disguises itself as arrogance and defensiveness. When a leader is arrogant, sometimes defensive, they don't want to take ideas from another person and all that, sometimes it means they are insecure. And I learned a lot of this when I was working, especially as a junior employee. When people are insecure with you, they are going to shoot down your ideas, they are going to control resources, they will make sure you're not visible and all of that. So sometimes the space for you to shine is not given unto you. You're not allowed in around other tables, in other conversations, because your leader at that time is insecure. Now, if you know that now, you will know that when you become a leader, you do not have to outshine other people or to make other people not to shine, because they will outshine you. Your responsibility as a leader is to accentuate the best that everybody else has. As a matter of fact, if you build other people, they will make you shine. They will work over and above the call of duty to make you look good. As a leader, you don't need to always wait for external validation. If what you're doing is right, it will be right. Right is right. No matter where you are, whether you're in India or in Malawi, what is right is fundamentally right. So you don't need external validation. Leaders that are insecure, they always expect external validation. After their meeting, they will always ask, how was it? After their presentation, how was it? When they wear an outfit, oh, am I looking good and whatever. That is insecurity. And as a leader, you don't have to do that. But secure leaders, on the other hand, they build other people. They are not scared to damage some things to get the job done. And I don't say that in a very bad way. There are some things that will never move if if you're not aggressive enough, or if you don't take up position and say enough is enough, this is what has to happen. And so you must never be afraid even to make decisions in terms of even firing other people that are not producing their work for you or in the quality that or manner that you want. So a leader that is secure, they will not be scared to take up decisions. When I was working for a certain institution, my boss once told me, and I want to tell you today, she said to me, the job of a leader is to make decisions. Are you going to make decisions that are bad? Absolutely, yes. Sometimes even all the time or on a daily basis. But you shall be forgiven for making a bad call or a bad decision than for not making a decision at all, because it is your job to make decisions. So never be afraid. Secure leaders are never afraid to try something new, to make mistakes, to make decisions, because that is their job. But if you have leaders that are toxic, that toxicity cascades within the institution. It becomes like a cancer, it affects everybody. So the mood, remember, I said in the first episode that any entity will take up the quality of a leadership culture. And if the leadership culture is toxic, everything within that institution is going to be toxic. So everything now rests upon you as a leader. And the other thing that you need to look at is leading before you have healed. And I faced this as well. I remember leaving my first job after I'd worked for 4 years, and I came out of it very bruised. I don't want to talk about what happened, but I went into another job immediately after I left that institution. I had not healed from the wounds of the first institution, and I went with those wounds into the second institution. That was making me insecure on many fronts, because every time my new boss would do something, I'll be thinking, it's coming back. He also wants to do this, when it wasn't like that. I was unable to look at the other people that I was working with based on their own merit. I was using the framework of where I had been wounded, where I had been bruised. And so when you are leading, if you have not healed, it becomes extremely difficult. Look at this. You have been bruised in a relationship, for example, and then you just jump into another relationship. That new relationship is bound to fail, because you are going to you are the common denominator. You are bringing in issues from the other relationship that have not been sorted within your spirit. And so it's the same thing with leadership as well. When you go into another leadership position, when you have not healed from the previous wounds, you cannot lead effectively. And then there was also another issue that I had to navigate, that was dealing with officials, senior officials from other organizations. I remember we were working with the city officials at the time, and there was one gentleman that had sworn that if you're going to send Vera to this meeting, I'm not coming. And my boss asked, why? He says, oh no, that girl is too arrogant. So no, I don't want to work with this institution. I don't want to work with your institution, especially if you're sending that girl. And so decisions had to be made that if I'm going to have a meeting with that institution, then I shouldn't go. I shouldn't represent that institution. And that was really a hard pill to take. And I discovered that many institutions would look at us, because you should imagine, I was very young at the time. And so I'm meeting a director of another institution. They were thinking that we are looking down on them, We're not taking those matters seriously. Why would you send a girl that is just fresh out of college? I had to work with ministers. I remember sitting down with the cabinet minister at the time, doing the speech that they were supposed to deliver in one of our meetings the next day. It was very difficult for me to do that, but I had to do it because it was the job. Remember, when you just do your job, everything else falls into place. When you're into a leadership position or you are into a job, you're bringing everything that has to do with you along with you. So you don't leave your character, for example. Your character is like a scar. It doesn't leave you. It cascades into every aspect of your life. So if you are a person that uses profanity, for example, then you go to church, you are the same person. If you're a person that likes gossiping, you are an accountant that gossips. You are a church member that gossips. You are a political party member that gossips. It's your character. It's within you. It never really leaves you. And then emotional leadership. Growing up, I would not take too kindly to someone disrespecting me. So if someone wants to treat me as though I never went to school, I would tell myself I want to put myself back on my place. In Chichewa will say, "Ndifuna uzibwezeresa pamalobanga." I thought I was defending myself. But the truth of the matter is, it doesn't really matter how somebody treats you. An emotionally mature person know who they really are. And therefore, if someone treats you like you don't have a degree, it doesn't take away your degree. When someone treats you as though you are just a low-level employee within that institution, even if you are the CEO or the director, it doesn't really matter. You take it back to them. You have one job to do. Just do your job. Don't take everything too kindly. Not everything should be about you. At every given point in time, people are going through issues. And sometimes you just happen to have been in their way and they've taken out their issues on you. But it doesn't mean that you were the problem. It means they are handling a lot of issues within themselves. Maybe they've just been beaten by their husband at home. You don't know. Maybe their child is giving them problems. Maybe they have a parent that is sick. It's not about you. So when you take matters to heart, when you're using emotions instead of discipline, therein lies the problem. So you must always be on your guard in terms of emotional intelligence or emotional maturity. Always remember, not everything is about you. This has been the Leadership Lab by Dr. VK, where we are raising authentic, stable, and efficient African leaders. And we shall do it one conversation at a time. See you next time.